What do you say, everybody? It's time for Monday Night Quarterback here on the BamaInsider YouTube channel. It's great to have you with us, heading towards Christmas, holiday season, New Year's, all that stuff rolled into one. And we're going to talk about Alabama and the Sugar Bowl. We got a basketball team that's in the top 5 now. I know we don't talk a lot of basketball on the show. It's not Monday Night Point Guard, but hell, you got to give those boys a lot of credit. They've beaten the number 1 team in the country not once, but twice already. And they play a really incredible schedule, which is cool. You know, they're not running around and trying to hide. They're playing anyone and everyone that wants to play some basketball. But before we talk about Alabama with our friend Clint Lamb and the rest of our crew, just thoughts and prayers right now with Coach Mike Leach at Mississippi State. Love the guy. Loved him since he told the story when he was at Washington State about the Floribama. You know, I spend a lot of my time there, have my show there. Loved it. Loved the guy, what he brings to the table, his sense of humor. He's a great football coach, and right now he's fighting for his life. It reports that he had a heart attack, and we're all thinking about him right now. I mean, this just awful. We'll kind of get into that a little bit more. But before we talk Alabama, Clint, I figured that would be a good place to start tonight.
Yeah, it's a tough situation, man. And the fact that it kind of was so sudden, which I guess, you know, with heart attacks, it normally is. You know, thoughts and prayers to Mike Leach, his family. You got to imagine they're going through a ton right now. The Mississippi State fan base in general, you know, they all care about this coach. I mean, you know, Alabama fans who are watching this, I mean, imagine something happening to Nick Saban and how that would affect you, even if you don't have like a personal relationship with somebody, when they're connected to something that you love so much, like a football program. You know, there's an attachment there, and there's a lot of emotions between coach and fans. So definitely want to give them, you know, our thoughts and prayers as well. But definitely Mike Leach. I mean, just I've enjoyed watching him over the years, whether it be at Texas Tech or Washington State. Definitely when he got to the SEC in 2020, wasn't able to have SEC media days due to COVID. It was one of the things I was looking forward to most, was him and Lane Kiffin finally getting to see them kind of go and kind of show us their personality, you know, back Lane being back in the SEC, but Mike Leach being there for the first time. And from the very first moment, I think that maybe the first time that he spoke, or maybe it wasn't, I don't know that I've ever heard him give like an introduction, you know, talk at the SEC media days. He always gets up there and he's like, hey, you guys are going to ask what you're going to ask and what you want to know. So let's just go ahead and get to the questions. And I love that. So, yeah, definitely thoughts and prayers out to Mike Leach.
Yeah, I know he's fighting for his life. I see in the comment section, some people think he might have passed away. Let's hope not. But I know it's not a good situation there. So hopefully that there's a miracle, you know. And then my good friend Chris Stewart, we were in the same spot, you know, and he pulled through, and I mean, and he's back on the air, and he's calling basketball, and he's screaming and doing all the things that we love about Chris calling football. So, you know, definitely thinking about Mike Leach tonight. All right, let's switch gears, guys. Thank you for being here. Like and subscribe. Hit the thumbs up. If you appreciate the show, that's a great way of saying Roll Tide, is by hitting the thumbs up. And make sure that you hit the bell. So when we go live with our shows, like Wednesday, when we do Recruiting with Bone, you'll get a notification, and you can be a part of everything that we're doing here. So we appreciate it, and give us a thumbs up. And don't forget that right now, Bama Insider, part of On 3, we're changing the face of team coverage. You guys know that. A lot more big things coming. $10 gets you an entire year. $1 gets you 4 months. But all the stuff that we're going to talk about tonight and much more is available there for members. All right. We got the news just a few minutes ago that Aaron Anderson is entering the transfer portal. He's a receiver. He actually had a really good camp. We expected him to be a big part of the offense, or at least a part of the offense, and then was injured, and then we didn't see him much this year. I mean, when I say we didn't see him much, I mean we barely saw him, and now he's going to hit the road. Should fans be concerned?
Yeah, it's when you look at the wide receiver position in general, I could see where fans would be concerned because you've lost Trayshawn Holden, you've lost JoJo Earl, 2 contributors. You know, guys like Christian Leary, who had a lot of promise. A lot of fans thought that he would get in the mix somehow, some way this season. You had, you know, like you just mentioned, Aaron Anderson, a very talented, you know, true freshman, top 40 prospect coming out of high school. Thought that he would be able to get into the mix. in the slot. Unfortunately, he had a knee injury that kind of slowed down his development in year one. Only ended up playing 3 snaps for Alabama this season. And now he's hitting the transfer portal. So you got those 4 guys. You've got Tyler Harrell. We don't know if he's going to be back, but I mean, he participated in senior day. Until I hear something that tells me otherwise, I'm going to assume that he's gone. That's what, I guess 5 different receivers who are now either leaving through graduation or hitting the transfer portal. That's going to cause some concern if you're a fan. But at the same time, you also got to realize the way that I've looked at it, because when Aaron Anderson that news first broke about an hour ago, my initial thought was, wow, I was not expecting that, because I wasn't. But at the same time, then it kind of, you start working your way through it and it makes sense, right? Because you've got Ja'Cory Brooks as of right now. We think that Jermaine Burton's going to be coming back. He could leave for the NFL, but I doubt it. I don't think that would do him very well based off his season. So you've got him coming back. You've got guys like Kobe Prentice and Isaiah Bond and Kendrick Law, all these different players who were a part of that same class as Aaron Anderson, who actually were able to get onto the field, do some good things, a lot of inconsistency, different guys stepping up in different weeks. But all of those guys showed enough promise where you expect them to be a heavy part of the rotation next year. Plus, you got the number 1 JUCO receiver in the country, and Malik Benson, coming in. That's 6 guys right there off the top of my head that would probably have been, over Aaron Anderson on the depth chart. And then at least 4 of those guys, maybe more, could end up returning for 2024 with the three true sophomores next year, and Benson being a junior. It was just, it's going to be an uphill battle for him to get onto the field. So I'm not overly shocked by the decision, but he is a very good player, and I do expect him to go on somewhere else and have a lot of success.
Hey, we see you in the comments section. Nick, Roll Tide to you. Eric, great to see you. Is that really Shannon Sharp? Hey, I was a big Shannon Sharp fan when he was the Ravens tight end, and he had some big catches, including one to beat the Raiders. Mike, Roll Tide to you. Bob, all you guys hanging out with us tonight. Kelvin, we appreciate it so much. And thank you for being here. Ballard Sports Media, Roll Tide, and Merry Christmas. All right, guys, talking with Clint Lamb. And again, make sure you like and subscribe as you join us here on Monday Night Quarterback. All right, well, you talk about the transfer portal. What's Alabama's approach to the transfer portal? Will they start targeting people? They're losing guys. They have a great recruiting class coming in. They got a huge commitment today. Keon Keeley, we're going to talk about that coming up with Joseph Hastings, right, who covers recruiting for On3. How's Alabama going to approach the transfer portal, Clint? Because I feel like, gut feeling, is that Alabama's going to be a lot more active than they have been in the past.
Yeah, I think that they could be. Here's the thing, though. I think it's all about your timeline, right? You got the early signing period coming up in a couple of weeks. I think that it's very important when you've got the number 1 recruiting class in the country, just a ton of talent, especially on the defensive side of the football. There's plenty of offensive talent as well, but the defense is just absolutely loading up. You want to get those guys signed, and go ahead and start working on, okay, this is where our roster currently stands. Where are some holes? Like a guy like James Smith, the 5-star defensive lineman, in-state defensive lineman, who could end up committing to Alabama. If you get him, you expect him to be an early contributor. Maybe your need for going out there and adding, an impactful defensive lineman out of the transfer portal, that's somewhat, it becomes a little less necessary, even though I do still think they could end up targeting somebody there. You've really got to see where your roster stands on the recruiting front, the young guys that you're going to be able to bring in, and figure out, okay, who are some guys that we think can contribute right away? Who are some guys that are more, a year or two down the road? And then you can start figuring out, okay, these are some positions we need to start targeting. But CJ Dupree, that guy, the tight end out of Maryland, he's already earned an Alabama offer. And to me, what that tells me right there is that the tight end position is a spot that Alabama is looking to add at least one body. And you could end up seeing some other guys, Jaheim Bell, Rivaldo, Fairweather out of FIU. There are multiple players who could end up getting an offer if CJ Dupree ends up wanting to go somewhere else. But that's a position that I would keep an eye on. You got guys like Jeremiah Byers, the offensive tackle out of UTEP. I was a huge fan of his before he entered the portal, the starting right tackle. Alabama needs some offensive linemen potentially. They are going to be bringing in a pretty good recruiting class. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see where everything stands when the dust settles. But I do definitely think that there are going to be some different positions that Alabama targets.
Yeah, and let's get into one big one, the quarterback. I've thought that the North Carolina quarterback was, at least he was rumored to be possibly transferring to Alabama, and it doesn't look like he's going to now. But Devin Leary, NC State's quarterback, entered the transfer portal. He's really good. Now, he was injured this year, but one of the best. Grayson McCall, Brennan Armstrong, all these quarterbacks are in the portal. Is Alabama going to be in the mix for any of these?
Yeah, that's the big question that a lot of fans want to know. And to me, kind of the way that I've looked at it this entire time has been, really it would take a Caleb Williams caliber player entering the transfer portal for Alabama to show any sort of interest. Now, granted, would that have been a Drake May had he chose to enter? Absolutely. I'm sure there would have been some interest there had he had some interest. Apparently he's staying where he's at. Is Devin Leary that caliber of quarterback, or Brennan Armstrong, or DJ Uiagalelei? I don't really see any of these guys being guys who are going to be able to come in and be that star power that you need at the position. You've got Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson, who you're wanting to see them kind of go through that quarterback battle. If they're going through the spring and neither one of them seem to be the guy, and you start worrying about that, maybe then you target the transfer portal, and maybe at that point you're willing to, get just a starting caliber quarterback and not somebody that's going to be, game changing at the position. And there's also the possibility that after the spring, more guys could choose to enter. So I think it's kind of a wait and see, let the battle play out. You don't want to do anything that's going to make, if you really truly believe that Jalen Milroe is still in this competition, or Ty Simpson, you don't want to bring in an established guy that's going to force one of those guys to transfer. So let them battle it out, see where you're at the position, and reevaluate after the spring. But I think it's very possible. Now, granted, if Milroe ends up losing the battle and he transfers, you've got a redshirt freshman and you've got two true freshmen in your quarterback room. From an experience standpoint, that's a huge problem. And so, if that ended up being the case at some point, I think Alabama would target the portal and try to add an established veteran presence. But as of right now, I think the quarterback position is probably going to stand pat.
Yeah, no doubt. I kind of feel like you're right, but anything can happen between now and next season. All right, before we talk some recruiting with Joseph Hastings, let me go to the comments section, and I'm going to pull up a comment here that I saw, and I want you to talk about it. And if you don't know, then you don't know. But I love all of you guys that are throwing the comments out there and are a part of the show, because it really does mean a lot to have you here and being part of what we're talking about. And the question is, Will Anderson and Bryce Young, will they play in the bowl game? Your thoughts on that right now?
And this is a question that we've talked about a lot. I've gotten asked it a lot. It's a very difficult situation because I think that neither one should play. If I'm going to throw my opinion out there, what really does it do? What does it do it shows that they're team players. From an NFL standpoint, you want guys who are team players. I'm not saying that there's zero benefits, but to me, it's cost versus benefit. And sometimes you look at it and it's like, if we were talking about the college football playoff and some guys choosing to opt out when there's actually still a championship on the line, then that would be a huge concern. Bailing on your teammates when the ultimate goal is still on the table. The ultimate goal, let's speak candidly, it's no longer on the table. So I think that not only would it benefit Bryce to go ahead and sit out, I also think it would benefit Alabama. They might not have as good of a chance to win the football game, and you certainly want to win, and especially you want to win handedly because this is the team that beat TCU, and you want to prove to people that, you should have been one of the four teams included in the playoffs. But at the same time, I also think it could be beneficial from going ahead and getting a head start on that quarterback competition between Milroe and Simpson. If Bryce isn't participating, now you're splitting all the practice reps between those two guys. I think that would be very valuable leading up to it. And then you could actually see them in some real live game situations. How much has Milroe improved since that Texas A&M game? That you would get some questions answered on that. How does Ty Simpson look when it's not mop-up duty, if he got some playing time? So I think for Bryce Young and for both of the two young quarterbacks, it would be beneficial if he sat out. You don't want to risk unnecessary injury if you're Bryce Young, but at the same time, he's a team player. He always seems to want to put the team first. So I don't know whether he's going to play. I don't know if Anderson's going to play, but if I was them, I would go ahead and, put my focus towards the NFL.
Yeah, look, and I'm going to take the other tact. I mean, especially for Bryce Young, how much money can you make playing football at Alabama? I mean, he's on every commercial. The guy's cleaning up. He's got his headphones and he's got his car and he's in the Heisman house and, Subway and everywhere else. He's paid, like it's not like he's an amateur athlete. So, to me, I hope that he plays. I think it sets a bad precedent for Alabama if they start having guys sit out. It's something that Alabama really hasn't dealt with. But at the same time, I see what you're saying, too. It's like, hey, at least you get an idea when you lose to Kansas State who you have for next season. Because I'm telling you right now, if he doesn't play and he doesn't play and they all start opting out, Alabama will get their butts kicked in that bowl game. Kansas State, all those guys want to play against Alabama.
Well, and you're 100% correct that there's going to be a ton of motivation from the other side. Even though, Kansas State didn't make the college football playoff, this bowl game means something to them. Yeah. They're not really in the hunt for a New Year's Six bowl too often. And the fact that they're here and you get to play Alabama and get to kind of slay the dragon that Alabama always gets everybody's best game.
Yep.
I also think it would be difficult for Kansas, especially if you saw a lot of Ty Simpson, because they have nothing to go off of. They don't know what this guy does, what Alabama would ask him to do. Their preparation would be very difficult with a guy like Ty Simpson. With Jalen Milroe, a little bit more because you've seen him in the Arkansas game on the fly. You saw a game plan more so built around him with Texas A&M. And so you have a little bit of a better understanding of what he brings to the table. But at the same time, I would say that if Bryce Young doesn't play, Alabama's chances of winning the football game decrease drastically. If you want that bowl victory, your best chance to probably get that win would be with Bryce Young.
And build the momentum up. All right, Clint, always great to see you, brother. Let's do it again soon.
Absolutely, man. Good talking to you, Mick.
You too. Always great hanging out with Clint Lamb. And don't forget, guys, you can find Clint Lamb at BamaInsider.com. $1 gets you 4 months, or for $10, you get an entire year. But he's on the message board. You can debate him on this and a lot of other topics. And that also includes Jimmy Stein, who will be on the show here coming up. Today, though, as I bring Joseph Hastings on, and before we really get into this, like and subscribe, hit the bell. Give us a roll tide. I mean, a thumbs up here as you hang out with us on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. All right, let's talk right now. Big news of the day. Joseph Hastings, Keon Keeley commits to Alabama. So they finally got their man. This is a really big get.
Mick, it finally happened. This is a commitment we've been anticipating for a while now. If you remember, after Keon decommitted from Notre Dame back on August 17th, I submitted a prediction in favor of Alabama. So did Andrew Bone as well. And a couple of other predictions trickled in as well, because you looked at where Alabama was at that point in time. They had just played host to Keeley for an unofficial visit for the Champions Cookout at the end of July. They were going to be getting an official visit at the time. That was expected to be the last visit, and that ended up the last visit ended up being his Iron Bowl trip that he took last month. So, everything really lined up in favor of Alabama. Then you started to hear some whispers about Florida early in September. You started to hear some whispers about Ohio State, especially after he took 2 visits in September. But this one's been all Alabama for a while now. I actually included Keon in my mock class for Alabama back in April when he was still committed to Notre Dame. 4 months away from decommitting for the program. I'd said in my mock class that I believe that Alabama was in a position to flip him. I felt good about the Crimson Tide's position. It all really started with that junior day visit he took in January, and they just further built upon momentum there. So huge get for the Crimson Tide. Keeley is the number 3 overall player on On3's 2023 rankings, the top edge prospect. I got to see him in person a few months ago back in September, and you look at his tape there, he's absolutely dominant. For someone who's 6'6", 245 pounds or so, he really plays with great fluidity, has an array of pass rush moves that he can use to get after the quarterback. Plays decent competition there at Berkeley Prep too, which is a program that produces top talent on a yearly basis. So he's received high-level development, has 33.5 total sacks over his past 2 seasons, has 101 total tackles, 57.5 tackles for loss. This is a really dominant player, and with an Alabama team that's expected to lose Will Anderson, I say expected because nothing's official yet, but with Alabama expected to lose Will Anderson, this is a huge get. He's somebody that's going to fill in at that jack position, and I think he'll have a chance to excel very quickly there with the Crimson Tide.
Hanging out with Joseph Hastings on Monday Night Quarterback, brought to you by Westgate Luxury Condominiums, right there next to Bryant-Denny Stadium, westgateal.com. Maybe you want to come in town and you want to see the number 4 team in college basketball, the Giant Slayers, Alabama, Nate Oates' club, right? And you need somewhere to stay. westgateal.com, Westgate Luxury Condominiums. You can rent them. You can also, if you're looking for real estate, you can buy them and rent them out. Maybe you want to move there. But it's right there next to Bryant-Denny. The oversized balconies. You got, just all the great appliances, amenities, and the Skygate Club on the roof where we do all of our home game, post game shows from. So really cool place, and great to be part of Monday Night QB. All right, Keon Keeley, Joseph, a beast as a player. Your thoughts on this monster that's coming to Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, like I alluded to in that previous response, I just think that he's somebody who's going to be able to fill in for Will Anderson at that jack position. That's a really versatile role that Alabama has implemented and has continued to see success at. And Keeley's somebody that I didn't really get to see him drop back into coverage too much. During my time watching Berkeley Prep a few months ago. I haven't really seen that too much on his film, but when it comes to rushing the passer, you can make the argument that he's the best in this class, from a pass rushing standpoint. And, Alabama's getting somebody who's already filled out physically. I met him in person after his game. I saw him after his official visit to Alabama in October. He's somebody that doesn't need much work to do in David Ballou's strength and conditioning program. Obviously there's going to be some fine tuning, of course. There's going to be a transition from high school to college. But in comparison to Yonsei Pierre, Alabama's other edge commitment in this 2023 class, Keon is really developed physically. So I don't think there should be too many concerns from a physical standpoint. And also there really shouldn't be too many concerns that he's going to be enrolling in the summer as opposed to January. He can't be an early enrollee due to Berkeley Prep's graduation rules. But you look at Keeley and you look at where he's at physically, I think there should be a lot of excitement and potential expectations for him to make an impact immediately with the Crimson Tide. I spoke with On3 Director of Scouting and Rankings, Charles Power, and he told me that he wouldn't be surprised if Keeley's making an impact early with Alabama. He knows that there's some talent there at the jack position, but Keeley has what it takes to get into the rotation early and often. Somebody who probably won't require a red shirt. You look at him, Caleb Downs. You look at some others in this 2023 class, maybe a couple of others, and you look at them as instant impact type of players. You see Caleb Downs. Can Justice Haynes get into the rotation there with Jahmyr Gibbs potentially departing? You look at Jalen Hale, Malik Benson, the JUCO wide receiver commits. Will they be able to bring some life to Alabama's wide receiver corps? But Keon and Caleb are definitely at the top of the list in terms of 2023 commits who can make an impact instantly for Alabama.
Hanging out with Joseph Hastings, talking recruiting here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel, Monday Night QB. Love you guys in the comments section. Mike's puts up, who's the next middle linebacker we can't miss on. And that kind of leads me to my question too, and you can kind of swing Mike's in there with it if you want, Joseph, but who's next? Yeah,
to answer Mike's question and then also kind of bleed into yours, Mick, it would be Arian Carter. He's the one that Alabama's really looking at the inside linebacker spot. Of course, they're still pursuing Ole Miss commitment, Suntarian Perkins, but he just announced on Saturday that he's locked in with the Rebels. He's going to be signing with the program. Yeah, I think Alabama's still going to continue to push there, but the top inside linebacker target's Arian Carter. He took an official visit to Alabama this past weekend. By all accounts, it went very well. He's being heavily pursued by the in-state Tennessee Volunteers, who saw him in person today following his official visit to Alabama. I think the On3 recruiting prediction machine is a little bit closer than 90 to 7 there in terms of Alabama versus Tennessee. I think it's more so about 60-40-ish. I would probably give the edge to the Crimson Tide, but he's going to be the next one to watch, Mike, in terms of inside linebacker targets. And then you've also got Quay Rousseau and James Smith. You mentioned him there in the comments too, the Carver duo. They just took an official visit to Alabama. I think the worry from the Crimson Tide's perspective was that they were going to take an unofficial visit to Auburn following this official. As of right now, that's not the plan for them. They're going to be hosting Florida for an in-home visit today, Alabama later in the week, Auburn on Wednesday, I believe. So, those are the main 3 schools to watch in this recruitment, but I have Alabama coming out on top. I think the Crimson Tide are in a good position. So when you're talking about who's next, Mick, you got to look at those 2. Those are going to be the next 2 that Bama fans are really, really paying close attention to because they're 2 in-state 5 stars, the top 2 rated players in the state of Alabama. They're expected to commit and sign on December 21st. So we're going to be watching them closely. As for Arian Carter, his commitment timeline is going to be an interesting one. I think I mentioned it last time. Sign next week and then announce at the All-American Bowl in San Antonio on January 7th. So we won't know for a few weeks with him where he's going. You look at other prospects that they're in pursuit of. Luke has the Arkansas tight end commitment. Reuben Bain, Jordan Hall, 2 defensive linemen out of the Sunshine State, Tyler Scott, Desmond Ricks, Malik Muhammad, CJ Blocker. Those are all cornerback targets for Alabama. So yeah, there's a lot going on. I don't expect to see a commitment until next Wednesday on the first day of early signing period, but that could be a massive day for the Crimson Tide. Could potentially see 5 to 6 big time targets commit to and sign with Alabama.
So do you think Alabama finishes with the number 1 overall recruiting class? They've been at the top of the ladder all year, seems like.
Yes, I outlined the path for Alabama to get to the number 1 class back in July. Keon was a big part of it. James Smith, Quay Rousseau, they were 2 big parts. If they're able to land James Smith and Quay Rousseau, I think you have to like where they stand. They already have a healthy lead over Georgia. When you look at the On3 consensus recruiting rankings, James Smith, Quay Rousseau, not only do you add them to your class, but you prevent them from going to Georgia too, which would prevent them from getting a little boost there in the rankings. Just the way everything is shaping up right now, Alabama seems like they're going to have a pretty comfortable finish with the number 1 class here. And that's something, because I kept on hearing that, this was a down year for Alabama, that this was the end of the Nick Saban dynasty, that it was all coming to an end. Yet they're about to sign the number 1 recruiting class, and reload for next season and could potentially be adding some really big instant impact players with the top 2 JUCO recruits in the country, multiple 5 stars. It's a very, very exciting class Alabama's putting together here, Mick.
Yeah, great stuff from you, Joseph Hastings. And just remind everyone about BamaInsider.com. What you got going on over there? Now that we're part of On3, you and Bone teaming up to cover recruiting. National Signing Day coming up. What is it, next Wednesday? I mean, we're here, man.
This was a big day for BamaInsider.com. If you go on our page there, as you can see, we had 6 separate stories on Keon Keeley's commitment to Alabama. We had Andrew Bone's insightful impact analysis of his commitment. I spoke with Keon's head coach and our On3 rankings expert, Charles Power. I'm going to be releasing a piece tomorrow with Chad Simmons, who's been following this recruitment for over a year and a half. Chad Simmons spoke with Keon Keeley himself about his commitment. There's just so much content there. Highly encourage you all to sign up, give it a go. So definitely encourage you all to check that out. Follow me on Twitter at Joseph A. Hastings. You can get all my content there or on the Talk of Champions message board. It's either going to my Twitter first or the Talk of Champions message board first. So really look forward to talking with you all there. Awesome, man. Well, have a great week, and we'll talk to you again next Monday. Mick, take care, man. You too. That's Joseph Hastings, part of our On3 crew of recruiting experts talking here about the Crimson Tide. And guys, we really appreciate you being part of Monday Night Quarterback. Let me bring on our final guest of the night, the dean of On3 in Alabama, and that would be Mr. Professor Jimmy Stein. How you doing, Professor?
Good. On the road in a hotel in Mississippi, and man, excited about that Keon Keeley commitment today. I know you just went over it with Joseph. Big deal. That's a big deal. Yeah. Well, look,
recruiting's been great for Alabama. The transfer portal, obviously, has been what it's going to be for everyone losing talent. The good thing for Alabama, Jimmy, is that bowl practice starts on Friday. I'm really hoping, and, Clint and I just talked about this. I'm really hoping that Bryce plays because, look, the guy's making a bunch of money on NIL. I think it sets a standard, that it keeps a standard for Alabama that you play all the games. And I guess we'll find out Friday, right?
Yeah, I think we'll know either Friday or before Friday. And, my expectation is that he's not playing. That's what I believe. Right. Now, I'm not reporting it. It's just what I believe. And I'm hopeful because – wouldn't it be great one more time to see Bryce? And not only one more time, Mick, but one more time seeing him pretty healthy. I mean, he looked much better against Auburn with that shoulder. Alabama's vertical pass game was back. I attribute that to Bryce's shoulder improving to the point that he could really let it rip. So it would be an even healthier Bryce. But my expectation is, that he'll want to rest the shoulder and not go through 10 days of practice and that game and get more hits on the shoulder before he goes through the NFL draft prep, which is different than it used to be, Mick. I mean, there's a lot more to that now. There's training with a personal trainer. There's his pro day. There's all sorts of medical exams. He might not work out or throw at the combine, Mick, but he will subject himself to medical tests from all the teams. And I just think he's going to want to be as healthy as possible for that.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, let's talk about bowl preparation anyway. Kansas State, I don't know how juiced up Alabama is going to be to take on a team like Kansas State. They're having their best season ever, and Alabama feels like this is a down year. They should be in the college football playoff. Had a couple of tough losses, right? And when I say tough, I mean, you saw them last second losses, but they didn't get in, and now they're playing Kansas State. Take me through what to expect starting Friday.
Well, first of all, you haven't played in a while. If they practice on Friday, I think that'll be December 16th is the date. They haven't played since something like November 26th against Auburn. So it's about 20 days since they last played, 20 days, or really 21 days since they last practiced in any form. So the first couple of days, you're just trying to get back in the swing of things. They won't sit down and start hard hitting. Friday would not be a hard hitting physical practice. Friday would not be here's the implementation of the entire plan for Kansas State. Friday would be a little bit about, hey guys, you remember that in the first period we do this stuff, and in the second period we do this stuff, and hey, you look about 3 pounds heavy, you might want to take a couple extra laps. I mean, Friday is a little bit about getting back into the swing of things. Also, as for us fans, it's going to be about who's out there. I mean, there will be opt-outs, and this is what we need to expect, Mick. This is what I'm expecting. I'll be surprised if Bryce is there. I'll be surprised if Will is there. I'm hopeful. I want to see Will Anderson play one more time for Alabama. So I'm hopeful, but I'm expecting no Bryce. I'm expecting no Will. And I think I'm just picking a number out. This is not scoop. This is just there'll probably be maybe two more guys that say, hey, I'm not going to play either. I'm going to just start preparing for the draft. I don't think people should be surprised when that happens. When this last happened, Alabama, Mick, Terrell Lewis and Trayvon Diggs, opted out. Jerry Jeudy, who was a first-round pick, he played. Henry Ruggs was a first-round pick. He played.
I know. But Waddle played, and I mean, I know it was a national championship game. Everybody told him not to play, and he played anyway. And I thought that really kind of showed the Alabama standard to me. The fact that these games matter because they're wearing an Alabama jersey.
No, I couldn't agree more. And hey, if I'm Nick Saban and I'm talking to my potential opt-outs, that group that's entering the NFL and, is up in the air about whether they want to play in this game, the 2019 Michigan game is the one I'm bringing up because I'm like, Jerry Jeudy played and he was MVP. And he's a first-round pick. He became a first-round pick. Trayvon Diggs didn't play. He opted out. He's like, I'm going to prepare for the draft. I'm not going to play. He went in a later round. Right. And even though there's no one alive today that would suggest that Jeudy is a better NFL player than Diggs, he's not. Diggs is one of the top 3 or 4 corners in the whole NFL. Judy's making more money than Diggs. And it's because Jeudy went in the first round. There's more money in the first round. So the whole point is Nick Saban has a direct real-world comparison. He's not talking about something that happened in the 80s with Cornelius Bennett or Derek Thomas or in the 70s with Ozzie Newsome. He's talking about real-life guys that our current players are very well aware of, the Jerry Jeudy's, the Trayvon Diggs. And he can point to that and say, hey, look, Jeudy created value for himself.
Yeah.
Playing in the bowl game did not hurt him.
Nope.
Diggs opted out. And it would probably surprise some of our young players at Alabama to know that Trayvon Diggs was not a first-round
right. And I think they owe it to their legacy, too. I mean, these honestly, this has been a really letdown type of year because we had 2 of the most talented guys that we've ever seen in an Alabama uniform, and the team just felt like it didn't have great leadership. They seemed nervous on the road. They didn't make the college football playoff. I still think they deserved it. I think they're one of the 4 best teams. But looking back, their legacy, if they opt out, to me, it just kind of cements a legacy that I don't think they want.
Yeah. Well, also this, though, I mean, there is a silver lining to that dark cloud of opting out, and that's this. Let's just say, and again, this is just examples. Let's say Eli Ricks opts out. Let's say Eli Ricks, should be a starting corner, talented kid, no doubt, hadn't played a ton because of injuries and other reasons. Let's say Ricks opts out, and you're like upset. You're like, what? Why is he doing? Why is he going pro? Why is he opting out? Well, if he's opting out, then it's very possible that the starting corner opposite Kool-Aid next fall will be Terrion Arnold. He's not opting out. Now, Terrion gets what amounts to a free spring practice. He gets a free 10, 12, 13 days of practice he otherwise wouldn't have had as a starter, and then gets to start against a high-quality Kansas State team on a pretty big platform in the bowl game. It'll just help Terrion Arnold for 2023. So all isn't lost with the opt-outs. You do get to play a younger player in their place, a kid that will be on the team next fall. And that's the way I choose to look at it is, hey, I want Bryce to play, but if he doesn't, more experience for Milroe and Simpson. I want Will to play. If he doesn't, maybe we see more snaps for Braswell, for Quandarius Robinson. Guys will be back on the team. So not all is lost with opt-outs.
Right.
The team has a chance to improve.
Right. Just get ready to lose to Kansas State. Same thing. The same thing I said to Clint, but I think you guys are right. Maybe I'm playing devil's advocate here, but I hope not. Anyway, I'd like to see those guys play again. All right, Bryce might be the best player in Alabama history. Had to deal with the shoulder injury this year. He was a Bulldog, and only missed the one game. Right, ended up 5th in the. Where did he ended up 6th in the Heisman? Where did he end up in the Heisman? Right behind Hendon Hooker, who should have been in New York. And
yep.
And then Caleb Williams won. This was probably the worst Heisman I can ever remember. I mean, what a joke this year.
Yeah, I don't really disagree with that. It seemed like, because this is the way I look at him. By the way, Caleb's a great player. I mean, and Caleb's going to be maybe even the number 1 pick in the 2024 draft.
Right.
I mean, the fact of the matter is he's still a young player. And if you look at Caleb's numbers all season long, game 1 through game 13, he had clunkers. There were clunkers in there. There were very non-Heisman. Go back and look at his numbers against Oregon State, for instance. I mean, there's several examples of, boy, that wasn't a Heisman-like performance. And then he gets to the last game with the whole world watching, the chance to make it to the college football playoff against a good Utah team. And again, he loses. The game's not even close. Yet he wins the Heisman. Why? Because everybody else had fallen off as well. Caleb was almost sort of a last man standing,
right,
as opposed to a guy that kicked the door down.
Yeah.
And Stetson Bennett and
what a joke.
And good players, good winners. They're winners. But the Heisman Trophy goes to the best player in all of college football. It is very weird to me to suggest that Stetson and Max Duggan were the best players in college football. I can name several that were better. In my mind, just me, Jimmy's biased Homer opinion, the 4 people there in New York should have been Caleb, C.J. Stroud, Hendon Hooker, and Bryce Young. Those should have been the 4 there, and those should have been the 4 that finished with the highest amount of votes, in my opinion. And, I wouldn't have even been opposed to Hooker winning it. I mean, he had the injury, yes. It is kind of silly, though, to suggest that had he played against Vanderbilt, he might have, won and put up big numbers. I don't think, missing the Vanderbilt game at the end.
I know. But how many of these people, Jimmy, how many of them even watch the games? I mean, Hendon Hooker was Tennessee's team. I mean, and I know, look, Tennessee leads the league in, smack talk You know, I know. Look, I know. We all know that they're not, you know, graceful winners. You know, but with that said, like, not this kid. You know, this guy's he did things the right way. To me, I mean, not only was he the best player in college football, he was the most impactful player in college football. You know, I don't know if you watch Vanderbilt, they ran over Vanderbilt. They didn't throw over Vanderbilt. It doesn't look easy scoring touchdowns with deep balls anymore without him there. So I agree with you, man. I thought he should have won it. Not only did he not win, he didn't even get invited. And Stetson Bennett, to me, is the Greg McElroy of Georgia. Mm-hmm. He's a good winner, but you know, he's not a Heisman Trophy winning player. I mean, come on, man. They could put anyone in that spot and they would do just as well.
Yeah, Bennett deserves a lot of credit, but again, the Heisman goes to the literally on the most outstanding player in college football. The wide receiver at Tennessee who won the Biletnikoff, Marvin Harrison at Ohio State.
Yeah, Hyatt.
There's a lot. Will Anderson. You know, there's a lot of players in college football that were closer to being the most outstanding player than Stetson Bennett. But I say that not wanting to diss Bennett. I mean, I do think that guys like Stetson, they tend to be underrated. But again, last man standing, there's no other obvious guys. It has turned into a quarterback award. And to get back to one of your earlier points, Mick, which I couldn't agree with more, there's too many voters.
Yeah.
There's too many. If you have 850 people voting, there aren't 850 qualified, credible experts. And there's too many people voting. And then you get some joke votes. You get some people who didn't watch the games votes, too many non-educated votes. And I think that would be apparent. I bet, Mick, if it was ever released, all 850 ballots, people would be outraged at what's on some of those ballots.
Oh, yeah. Look, I'm with you.
That's why they don't release it, probably.
Well, this year was just disappointing.
They should have the 50 most prominent members of the media. If it's going to be a media vote, that's fine. That doesn't bother me. But, hey, Kirk should vote. Kirk Herbstreit should vote. Pollock should vote. Reese should vote.
Right. Guys that covered everything.
Stuart Mandel should vote. I mean, those guys. I mean, the guys that we all know, Pat Forty, he should vote. And I could name 20, 30, 40, 50 others. Some people at On3 should vote. But there's too many voters.
He's Jimmy Stein. I'm Mick Gillispie hanging out with you. Monday Night QB here on the BamaInsider YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. The show's brought to you by Westgate Luxury Condominiums right there next to Bryant-Denny Stadium. All right, Jimmy, big question. Everyone in the comments section wants to know this. I want to know this. Inquiring minds want to know, how do you win the portal?
Wow, it's a fun question. And this is the way now it's going to be different for everyone, right? Let me give you two examples. This is the the Bama Insider show, so we're going to give you the Alabama example. But let me start with, this isn't the South Alabama Insider show, but let me tell you how South Alabama wins the portal first, Mick. And that's this. South Alabama, as good as they were this year, 10-2, going to a nice bowl, ascending program, right? Well, Kane Womack, their head coach, and their other assistant coaches, they cannot stroll into Thompson High School, in Birmingham or near Birmingham, and walk in and say, you know what, Tony Mitchell, you know what, Peter Woods, we want you to play for us. That's not going to happen in a million years. South is not able to, based on history, tradition, and facilities and stadium and fan support. They're not going to be able to recruit at an SEC level. They can't just walk into these high schools and sign SEC talent. They're not going to beat Alabama, Auburn. They're not going to beat South Carolina, Kentucky, or Mississippi State. Really, they're not usually going to beat Vanderbilt, to be honest. So how can South Alabama win the portal? South can find SEC players in the portal that want to leave SEC schools because they're ready to play. So South should go to the portal and sign the SEC talent that they're barred from signing out of the high schools, but they can sign them out of the portal because SEC players in the portal are looking to play snaps wherever. So that's how South wins the portal. Well, how does an Alabama then win the portal when you can recruit the best players in the country? Well, as brutal as it sounds, what you do is you clean out the bottom part of the roster, and then you sign What you bring in is the top part of the roster. You look at the 85 guys that are on the team as a certain talent level. Well, some are leaving in search of those snaps, in search of playing time. You don't have to replace 15 guys that left with 15 guys coming in, but you can win the portal if 15, 18 guys that aren't going to play, that aren't in your plans, that aren't in the too deep, they leave, creates room for the new signees, the new wave of SEC stars. But then you pluck, you find 2 or 3 guys who could be immediate starters, the Henry To'os, the Jamison Williams, the Jahmyr Gibbs, guys like that just increase your overall talent level. So for Alabama, it's picking the right guys to be immediate starters. Will that happen this year? Will there be 1? Will there be 2? Will there be 5? That's yet to be seen. But Alabama can win the portal, even though more are leaving that will be coming in. South needs to sign a lot of guys out of the portal to win, because that's the way they bring in SEC athletes to a Sun Belt roster.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that with Clint, but I love your thought process on the portal. I'm expecting Alabama to be pretty aggressive this year, but you know what? When you have the number 1 recruiting class and you stack that on the number 2 recruiting class, you still got to get those guys in, and it should be interesting kind of to see where Alabama ends up when it's all said and done. All right, the final thing I want you to comment on, we kind of talked about this at the beginning of the show, is your thoughts on Mike Leach right now in critical condition. He might not make it. I mean, I think that's a fair statement right now, but we're praying for him and his family. And he's just, to me, Jimmy, he's one of the great characters that I can ever remember in college football coaching.
Yeah, I mean, we're praying for a miracle, certainly sending all the prayers and thoughts to Coach Leach and his family and the Mississippi State family, just devastated over this. And what a loss. Should he not rebound? Character, it would be so boring if college football was just the same guys that give the same cliches and the same media quotes that all the other coaches. How great was it for Coach Leach to share his thoughts on everything but football? And what I will always remember him for is those comments he had about, he talked about the floor of Bama as one of the great places he's ever been to party in his life, which meant a lot to us on the Alabama coast.
Yeah.
Because everybody like me and Mick that live in Baldwin County, Alabama.
I was there Friday and Saturday, Jimmy. Friday and Saturday. I was there for the Army-Navy game.
Mike Leach mentions it in a Washington State press conference when he's asked, where is the best party you've ever been to? He mentions the floor of Bama. He talks about Sasquatches. He talks about UFOs. He gave Alyssa Lang from SEC Network wedding advice because she's getting married in the offseason. That's the things I'll remember about him. It's not just the offensive innovation, which was brilliant. It's not just his success at places hard to win, not easy to win at Texas Tech and Washington State and Mississippi State, and he did. Mm-hmm. But, man, what a character. And I'm praying for a miracle from what we hear. And I'm sure what you hear, Mick, and the audience, it's a dire situation. So we need a miracle. But if we don't get one, the miracle to me was Mike Leach. How much fun he brought all of us who love college football. And that means we love it all, right? And,
yeah.
Boy, Coach Leach brought a lot of enjoyment to us college football fans.
Yeah, look, I mean, I remember we were going through this with Chris Stewart, and it was really dire. I mean, and used to work with Chris, love Chris, but he's a great example of miracles do happen. I mean, like, dealt with, I don't know how similar, but I just remember, kind of praying a lot that, that we would have him back one day. And not only did we have him back at basketball, we got him with football now, and he's doing so many great things in his life. So, I mean, I just hope that Mike kind of is able to, to have that same light shined on him. But you're right. It's really, I mean, the Halloween candy, it's just, all the stuff that the guy does, he's the type of person that you just really enjoy being around and just hearing what he has to say. I worked with a guy named Joe Madden, when I went with the Cubs, and Joe's kind of similar in that, you go into his office, hey, I need to get this from you. And, next thing you know, he's pulled out like pictures of his car or that
he's a wine fan, right?
Yeah, bottles of wine, or he's showing you his RV and telling you about the RV. And, he's just a fantastic person and, and a character and someone that, there's a lot more to him than just coaching baseball. And obviously there's a lot more to Mike Leach than coaching football. So, our hearts are definitely with him right now and just hoping that there's a good outcome, but it doesn't look too good right now. Yeah, it really is a shame, but miracles happen. Yep. All right. What are you doing over at BamaInsider.com? I know you're over there constantly just peppering the message boards and talking about different things. So, folks, you need to go over and hang out with Jimmy, ask him all your questions, get into the debates, argue with him if you disagree on some of the stuff that he says. He loves that. It's what he loves. I throw it out there. I want Bryce to play. Obviously, he doesn't think it's going to happen. What do you think? Talk to him at BamaInsider.com. $10 for an entire year, $1 for 4 months. Jimmy? Yeah, heck of a deal. And yeah, I do like when people argue with me politely. Hey, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. That's how I learned. I'm the last person to say I know it all. I don't. I know more about football now than I did 10 years ago. And one of those reasons is I want to learn. My mind is, I have a lot still to learn. And if somebody disagrees with me, tell me why and change my mind. And trust me, it changes all the time. So I love that. And I do talk a lot on the board, have discussions with Alabama fans every day. As a matter of fact, I'm averaging the last 2 or 3 months over 1,000 posts a month. That means that's a lot of discussion with Alabama fans. And I'm eager to keep talking about it with signing day just 9 days away. Let's talk about these new kids coming in. Today is Keon Keeley Day. Couldn't be more excited. One of the best pass rushing prospects I think I've ever seen commit to Alabama. Nice. Would you talk any about Alabama's win over Houston in hoops on Saturday? Talk any basketball? I mean, the fact that Alabama's ranked number 4 in the country, Jimmy, we're a basketball school now. Did you know that? I think it's hilarious. The basketball team is number 4, and it's the greatest thing that's ever happened. The football team is number 5, and it's an abject disaster. That's where Bama. Roll Tide, baby. Hey, last comment, but I appreciate all you guys hanging out with us at the comment section. Jarvis, I will buy you a cold beer if you're right. He said it doesn't matter who we start. We're going to beat them by 3 touchdowns at quarterback. All right, Jarvis, I don't think that'll happen. We didn't beat anybody by 3 touchdowns except Auburn, and that was with a healthy Bryce Young. So I don't know. Look, I would love the idea. If you promised me, Jarvis, if you promised me, Jimmy and Big Buck, all you guys in there that don't like it when I say that I want Will Anderson and Bryce Young playing in this game, if you promise me we're going to win, then I'm fine with it. How about this scoop? Or not scoop, or how about this? Let's remember this. Let's assume Gibbs doesn't play and Jalen Milroe is the starting quarterback. Kansas State's going to have to spy Milroe. They'll put an inside linebacker. You cannot play Jalen Milroe without spying him. Watch Jace McClellan to have a huge game. Once Kansas State has to put a linebacker on Milroe, that's one less person in the tackle box, that's watching number 2. If Gibbs sits out, which everyone would also understand, and Milroe's a starter, Jace McClellan has, I'm going to go ahead and say right here on the Bama Insider Show, 150 plus from McClellan in the Sugar Bowl if all those things happen. Okay. All right. Well, we'll know a lot more when we get together next Monday, Jimmy. We will know a lot more about all of these topics that we kind of hit on tonight, because we'll be that much closer. Practice starts on Friday. And of course, the Sugar Bowl on December 31st at 11 a.m. over in New Orleans at the Sugar Bowl. And Chris Daltrey, who's behind the scenes, tells me that he and Trey Yanity will be there. I'm 50-50. I'd like to go. Got to figure out where I do the post game from if I do go. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, Jimmy, thanks for coming on the show, man. And let's do it again next Monday. Love it. Can't wait. All right, for Jimmy Stein and Clint Lamb and Joseph Hastings, Chris Daughtry, and the man that puts it all together, Kyle Henderson. I'm Mick Gillispie. Thank you guys for hanging out with us on Monday Night QB, brought to you by Westgate Luxury Condominiums. As a thank you, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, be part of the Bama Insider YouTube channel, and be part of the changing face, the new world order of team sites, BamaInsider.com. $10 gets you an entire year. And as we roll towards National Signing Day, Andrew Bone and all of the On3 crew and Joseph Hastings, they're going to constantly keep that thing updated. Deion Sanders is in the game now at Colorado trying to flip some guys. You got a new coach named Hugh Freeze down at Auburn. He's bringing some guys in. So what's going to happen? Well, we're going to tell you what's going to happen at BamaInsider.com. Comment section, you guys killed it tonight. Andrew Bone and his recruiting show will be on Wednesday this week leading up to National Signing Day, which is next Wednesday. And for our entire crew, I'm Mick Gillispie. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys, and a hearty Roll Tide.